Okay. So that looks like it's recording. And, oh, why are we getting... Okay. So, bring that back down. And let's make sure going on here before we start. Oh, I hear myself, so that seems like it is working. Good. So let's get general and get going. Oh shoot, I forgot to grab that. Oh well. So, let's see, we're all good here. So, I'll turn you off. And, yeah. All right, so today it is just going to be me. My wife is running a Dungeons and Dragons kind of game with our after-school kids. So this is Scrawl, and it is a video synthesizer that Nicole and I programmed, and it is essentially about making shapes. It really was meant to be an RGB spotlight for theater applications. We've bought some pretty expensive DMX lights recently, and while those are really fun to mess around with, they don't necessarily have all the features we'd want. So we wanted to try to play around with a way to cheaply, and using like projectors that we already have around, make some moving lights that can change colors really easily and not cost thousands of dollars. So that is kind of where this project started out of. And to get going here, we're just going to start on the real basics. As you can see, when you start out in Scrawl, it may show a startup screen that's like a splash screen on the desktop, but it should pop into this one. Black background, and if you move a mouse that's connected to your Raspberry Pi, then you should see it start to paint like this. So if you press the right mouse button, it's always going to erase your buffer and start back over. If you hold it, you can get into a kind of like spotlight mode going on and paint little patches. So, circles are nice. You can see, you can make them bigger and smaller. And if you make it all the way small, you see that the cursor is still there. Sometimes you might want the cursor to like see where your signal's at. Sometimes you may not want the cursor. So you can just turn it off. It is MIDI number 64. It is a button. I'm using the Korg Nano controller, but you can use a Korg Nano controller 2 would probably work, but I'm using the 1. I have a 2 that I'm going to try to make a template for, since it seems like more people use those. So, the circle, your only real parameter for this one that we're going to talk about right now is the one size, which just makes it bigger. That's fun. But let's go to another shape. So, I'm going to turn the cursor off. Now we have ourselves a rectangle. This one is going to use 2 different size controls to give you X and Y, so you can make some really nice lines there, lines here, do some fun stuff like that, which will be very fun later. Other than that, it's just nice for little boxes. It gets really fun with colors. Let's see, the next brush is a triangle, which I don't really use the triangle that much, but I figured I should put it in there. I may get around that, we'll see. With this one, it has several controls. And those are 17, 18, 121, and 122 on a MIDI controller. So that would be size 2, try X and try Y if you're following along on the GitHub. That kind of has some notes about what everything is actually mapped to. So with this one, you can get a lot of different shapes out of it. So that is our triangle. Moving forward, this one is not really being controlled other than right now I'm just pressing the mouse button and turning it on or off into the draw. So it is basically just some random lines quickly going. I like this one. It can be really fun when you're adding color or video. Let's move forward. Oh. All right, well, there we go. So this one is also a very fun one. I like this kind of like starbursty guy. You can make it real big. You can make it denser or less dense. It gets some really beautiful painting. Again, once you start adding color and randomization and video stuff, it gets real wild. So that is that one. And then beyond that, there is another triangle that has more controls mapped out to it. So the X and Y for each of the 3 angles you have control over if you want something really specific. Like for us, for theater usage, we would want to use it for like projecting, like lighting just a window, for instance, or just a part of the set. Let's see, and I believe, oh, for some reason there's another circle at the end here, but that is, don't look at that. It doesn't matter. I do have some other brushes planned. I think one that I just need to uncomment out that does some really cool stuff with video that I've not really seen before. So that is our basics on brushes. The brush MIDI control number is 16, and that kind of swipes you through those different brushes. All right, so next let's look at coloring brushes. Those will be MIDI controls 20, 21, and 22. So I'm working in red, green, and blue instead of doing hue, saturation, and brightness. I like being able to mix with those colors specifically. So that is how I've got it set up here. So if you have your 20, 21, and 22 on a MIDI controller, you can go through and change colors. And this is where some of the like mixing can get real fun. Mixing colors. But what could be more fun would be potentially mixing some alpha in there. So we'll get to that in a minute. Again, size and everything still works with all this stuff. So changing the color works real nice going into this little painting buffer. So let's just change it back to white. Not a whole lot to explore there. Just being able to color the brush. So now we have a background as well. The background, you can only actually color the background. Like I'm actually moving the controls for it, which are 124, 25, and 26. Change the background color. And you can move those, like I'm moving them now, but it's not gonna actually set that color until you delete whatever is currently in the buffer. And then if you're not drawing to it, you can change it. But as soon as you start drawing to it, it's set in with that color. So being able to have your background a different color can definitely be nice. Let's see. So mirroring mode. This one, if we turn it on here, let's see, it is MIDI number 34, turns on mirroring. So I'm having it start, I had to add some extra mirroring options, because as much as I like 4, it tends to get into some shapes that I'm not really super happy with. Some like symbology that I'm not really going for. So we added some 3s in there and 2s, and it gets up to a whole bunch. So we're just saying we're mirroring around a point. Whatever, you can change your shape and all your color stuff, and they're all going to change. So right now, they will all follow whatever you have set. Let's see. Very good. So, if you want to maybe change it over, these get real fun. So all of this, I'm just moving the mouse around as I'm sort of wiggling a control at a time, working on the colors right now of these shapes. We can automate that stuff later, and it's all kind of tied into a specific system. We might make it variable for different parameters at some point, but I kind of like it all being based on the same thing. And then you can turn it on or off if you like it. So, these shapes are a little big. It can be real fun to get some jaggy stuff like this. Okay, shoe. We have talked about coloring and the mirroring. So as far as mirroring, your mirror shape, like the number of actual, shapes that are present, you control them in an up and down fashion with MIDI controls 43 and 42. So you just press buttons and it changes the amount of shapes that are actually present based on the information you've already put in. So, what else do we have for mirroring? Oh, the other mode, which is scaling. So you can do mirroring. You can turn that on and off. You can also do scaling, which we probably want to put that about like that. So depending on how many shapes you have in here, you will see that it does a sort of different thing compared to what it was before. And if you turn on the mirroring, it starts changing the actual scaling of each shape between the mirroring. So you can still work within that mirroring, but you're also making for more of these like spirally, diagonally, kind of strange shapes. And especially the more you have put in there, further you can get. Oh, something I didn't even mention. You can always turn the fill on or off. So this would be a fun time to turn the fill off. For these kind of things, it gets real wireframey and fun. And then you can mess around with the shape. And just get all kinds of good lines going on. So, fill, get that back on. The scaling, we'll turn that back off, and now I've just got mirroring on with some little itty bitty shapes, and this, I could just watch this kind of stuff for a long time. I really like these kind of lines and this spirography kind of look going on here. And then if you start just doing some basic color transforms, it turns into some real fun looking stuff. So, get that turned back up. I think that is a good bit for mirroring. Now, we want to start moving. Let's see here. I'll talk about that too. So we can turn the cursor on and off as a kind of utility thing to see where we're actually at on the screen. We can also turn, the button is called Erase. It's MIDI 65. And if you have that turned on, then it's not going to draw to the buffer. So if you turn it off, then it will start drawing to the buffer. It's kind of it's weird for it to be named Erase, but there it is. So if you don't want to be drawing into the buffer and really just want to play around with this kind of stuff and not have to worry about how it's looking and getting like stacking off on top of itself, then you would want to definitely turn Erase on. But if you want to play with the buffer side of things, you will need that off. Let's see. So yes, that would be our mirroring. And the next thing, yeah, if we want to get these things moving, we will turn this on so it is erasing things currently. We're not writing into the buffer. And we've just got some simple mirroring on. So to get things moving, I have several buttons mapped out, and they are MIDI 38, 39, 70, and 55. And those turn on the Y bottom to top, Y top to bottom, X left to right, and X right to left. So we should probably turn off mirroring to make this make more sense. And if we'll do something, oh, not that. We want to do something that, there we go, move us across the screen, and I'm going the wrong way there. Okay. So, this is nothing too special here. Let's keep it at a high speed. So we just have something moving across the screen. You can turn it on and off. You can move it, send it the other way. If you press the other button, so if you press the right to left while left to right is running, then you will just have it go the other way. It turns it off automatically. And if you press it again, it'll stop. Let's take it like that, put it across, and now we can of course run top to bottom too. Again, this is nothing too special. If you are missing your cursor, move the mouse around a little bit until you see it. There's definitely some weirdness that goes on with the auto scrolling stuff. But especially if you have the mirroring on, it kind of fixes that. Alright, so we can move things along a specific path. So maybe let's, instead of doing a little line, let's just make ourselves a shape. A little square, rectangle thing, one of the two. Yeah, there we go. So now I want to have it running this way too. So you can have it run top to bottom, bottom to top, left to right, or right to left. And obviously you can only have them running at two of those things at the same time. I also have some buttons at the very end of the controller here, random draw and random size, which would be MIDI 60 and 61. So if you press MIDI draw and you change MIDI control 62, that's the knob on the top there, that changes how often it picks a different path. So MIDI control 62, basically, right now it's set to very often it's going to change. So it's changing its path all of the time, and it has a big range that it can select between. Maybe if we don't do it on the path and we do it on the size instead, it'll make more sense. So you can see right now it's picking a different size. Move in the screen a little here. And we can slow that down and speed it up. And then we can change the actual amount. The slowing down and speeding up is MIDI 62, and the actual random amount size, the maximum amount that you can set the random to is control 119. So you can have it changed real fast and change the amount to be small, so it's only going to pick little small shapes or little small changes. All right, and then you can make it real big. So if we then turn that off, it'll keep the size. So a good way to just kind of vary things when you have some randomization and auto drawing going is just to press the button, and then it'll switch over to a different shape. So now let's get some drawing going again, and we'll have it change. So it's changing the actual draw speeds for both X and Y right now. And it does it pretty often. So a way to see this a little bit better would be to turn drawing on. Okay? Let's make the shape a little bit smaller. Go out of there. There we go. All right, so now we're seeing how it's actually changing, how quickly it's moving, and in what direction. It looks like we need to move up and to the left a little bit. There we go. So we can now set it to vary the size as well. So not only is it changing the X and Y direction at a set time, but it's also changing the size of the shape. Again, this is not like groundbreaking stuff, but this is the basics of how everything in Scrawl operates. Now, we can change, we have a little selection on MIDI 41 and 45 that is the color of brush. There are a couple different settings for that. I'm not going to try to remember exactly what they are because they're pretty specific. It basically randomizes it either is set to whatever you have on the MIDI controller, or it randomizes the color, the RGB settings, or it randomizes the alpha, or all three. Things of those nature, and it is based on the timing of this same thing we're doing. So we'll switch it so it starts to change. We are now on a color randomization for whatever shape you are running. So again, that changes at the same time that the size changes and the directions change. So you can start to, let's just erase where we're at and let it go and do its thing. You can start to get some fun little patterns out of this. Let's make it change really fast. And I might make it faster, but sometimes when you're changing colors super fast, it gets into like seizure territory, and I don't really like that all the time. So, move it the other way so we got some different stuff going on here. All right, and at any time you can of course change your shape. So now we got our little circle going. We might want to make this a little bit bigger. If we make our random amount bigger, then you're going to see things get drawn across the screen more quickly, and the shapes get bigger, and you can start to fill it up more quickly. Going back to our little square here, get some fun stuff. Now, if we change our color of brush again, which I'm pressing MIDI control 45, let's see, this is the one that does not have any alpha settings. So this is just straight up RGB randomization. This one here, I believe, is the one that has alpha. Yeah, it's whatever. So we have some color stuff going. Now to make this really fun, we can bring in some mirroring. Let's clear this back out, turn the mirroring on. That is way too many shapes. Let's turn it down. Let's make it 3. Okay, so we turn on some mirroring. Now, when we turn on mirroring with this color randomization and all this other stuff, we are going to see, let's make it not change so often. There we go. So when we turn this on, you can see that the shapes all take on the same size, color, everything. What do we need to do to make that, if we want it to be a little bit more random? I really like this. This kind of look can be fun. However, I've set it up so that we can also change each of the mirrored shapes' colors to be different. So let's turn that on, which will be brush color MIDI 35. Let's see here. There we go. Now each of your brushes has a different color at the head. Let's see, how's my computer doing? I have 28%. Oh my gosh, I haven't even gotten like, how did this, oh dear, oh dear. Okay, so this may be a short stream. It was at like 100% when I started, I promise. Oh boy. So we can get this really cool stuff going on here with different colors. What do we want to do beyond this? We can change into different shapes like the triangles. Those can be fun. But since we are looking at time at the moment, oh yeah, I love this stuff. I could watch this like all the time. I think we've talked about that. We've talked about our different shapes and the coloring auto. So there is also a mode here, which I really like. If you want to get into like black and white stuff specifically, this is the mode for you. So it does alpha randomization for the channels, and is basically sending the same number to all the channels so that it gets a specific color between white and black, but then also sends a color to alpha. So you can get these really fun stacked patterny kind of things. Let's see if we change it to this one. Yeah, we've seen these. Here's the one with the color one with alpha. There we go. I was trying to find that. So that works for that. Now, that's a whole lot of stuff. Let's turn the colors so they're all the same. We want this one. Turn that off. Turn these off. Okay. There we go. Turn these things off. Sorry about that. So now I wanted to get us recentered. We are back to just a circle. If we press 42, which is of course, everybody say it together, the meaning of life. Very good. We will bring in video. So now, the video is currently running in through a webcam and going into the Raspberry Pi. The video is masked by your shape. All right, now let's flip that. There we go. How much time we got here? 22%. We're not dead yet. Not dead yet. And there I am in the mirror. So, this works very much in the same way of everything we've been looking at. Sometimes the mouse can get stuck in weird positions when you do the X and Y scrolling. So if you see it being strange, there are actually some MIDI controls for X and Y, and then that can actually be really fun to either control through like an external program or through something else. I'm distracting myself now. I need to actually continue. Sorry. So everything we've learned about shapes and brushes can also be applied once you've turned video on, and you can do some fun stuff with it. Let's make the thing that I definitely most wanted to try and do some slit scanning stuff. Alright, so we are way too fast right now. We're going to want to slow that down. There we go. So, you can get into some slit scanning territory with scrawl. Oh, that's doing some weird things. Alright. Move the camera a little bit. It's always fun to do with that. So if you set up something like a rectangle and then send it through to auto modulate, you can write it into the buffer in a slow way. And that is what we want to do for slit scanning. Let's turn that off. Sorry, it is not doing 100%. There. I think my mouse is moving on the surface. It keeps not going. Here we go. So you can do some cool split scanning stuff. Anyway, if we take it out of that, let's make like some little boxes. Speed it up a little bit. There we go. Now this is the kind of stuff that I was doing on the Memory Palace that I really, really enjoyed. This kind of like box drawing. And it's not the greatest when you have like me being super still here, but you can kind of get the idea. If you turn on mirroring, oops, well, yeah, you can also, as you saw, color the video, which I wasn't really going to show you yet, but there we are. So you can color the video in the same way that you could with brushes. That can make some really cool stuff with feedback. Point the camera at a TV screen and it makes some really, really cool stuff. But you can also have it all right normally. So let's up these shapes, because why not? Make them real skinny. Oh yeah. And then this gets into some fun territory, right? Where you have all of these different shapes writing into this buffer. Okay, you can also, maybe let's turn off mirroring and go over to our noisy shape, right? So this is fun, just let it sit there, kind of draw you out fully, and then move, and it gets that fun, like, wiry stuff going on, but only where the movement is really happening or something has changed up over. Right? So, the brush that I do not have in here yet basically is one for slit scanning. It's got a bottom to top oscillator and a side to side running at the same time, and that does some really, really wild stuff. Let's see here. We'll switch back over. I really think my favorite is the line one. I really love how it looks. And then when you start getting the mirroring in there, a little more regular number, it just gets really fun. Circles, we want to make sure stay small. Yeah, so with video stuff into Scrawl, like I said, it works very much the same. Looks very much the same as like what oh sorry, lost my train of thought because I was looking at the chat. So this is definitely a thing that I'm having a lot of fun with. It was a patch that I made on the Memory Palace that I was like, I need to make something that can do this, and it's all built into Scrawl. So there's still some things that I would like to do with it, as far as like new brushes, like the one that I talked about, and that sort of thing. But really for now, I think I'm happy with where it's at. And if people have ideas or requests or anything like that, hit me up. It's all for free up on GitHub. Use a Nano Controller 1 or 2, works on the Raspberry Pi 3. And next time I do this, since the computer is dying and I don't want to lose the recording, I think I am going to try to add in, do some like mixer feedback behind this or maybe in front of it. You know what? I got this set up. I could maybe try. I'm going to turn it off real quick and see. I don't know if this will work for the stream. I'm going to try to input. I'm going to use a strange loop just as a video player because it was what I had that was easiest and accessible. So I'm going to send a strange loop video in, I think, the Genlock like oscillator pack series. Let's see here. This bigger. Oh, nope. That is not that. There we go. All right, so we got some Genlock oscillators from that latest pack. All right, so I just wanted to show this so you could see what it looks like to have. Let's see, get those moving. Oops. Oh. There we go. Sorry. So we could see what it looks like to have like video coming in, and I didn't want this one to be like straight up video as much, mostly because we will get to that in the next one. But I wanted this one to be like a simple, this is black and white graphic. So let's do the thing where we color it. I want to color them each. There we go. Color them each differently. Ooh. And we need this moving a little bit quicker here. have it move on that too. Switch it over to this. All right, so I'm in some weird zones here for sure. Oh. That video seems real dark on me. All right, so yeah, you can send video in through it, and it makes some really cool stuff. I am really happy with just finding something like a little setting like this and kind of letting it go for a while. It is a great kind of partner once you figure out a patch you like and set it to like auto patch. And then just let it go, and you can start worrying about stuff on the mixer, or like the LZX stuff, or whatever else you're working with. So, let's see. Oh, yeah, I need to cut this off. It's getting close to dying. It looks like there's some stuff, a couple questions maybe in the chat, so I'll answer those here in a second. And I need to do that roll, which I left the die at home again. Ugh, even though I reminded myself. So I will do that roll on Instagram again. So anybody that's here, go ahead and guess a number between 1 and 100. Put it in chat, and then I will roll and put it up on Instagram, our 1D100 die, and we will see what you win. I posted the page that has everything written on it that you may potentially win. Just lots of odds and ends for video stuff. So, thank you for joining this and like watching it. Next time I think I'm going to try to get a video of the actual MIDI controller so you can see that too. But other than that, I think I'm going to add in some feedback next time with a video mixer, or maybe send some LZX stuff into it, and then it starts getting even more wild. Or putting it in the feedback path of the mixing. It's always fun too. All right, so let's turn this on. Maybe. Oh, no, it's not on that anymore. That's fine. All right, so I think that is going to be the end of it. I was going to say goodbye on camera, but I forgot that I unplugged it. So thank you, everybody, for stopping by. I will see you all later.